So our Trojan horse approach to the game is we're using the game to create new intelligences. Benevolent, artificial intelligence, wisdom-based, that have gone through the learning of both Moloch game dynamics, understanding the sustainability crisis, and be at the epicenter of the transformation of the Moloch operating systems. So that we can then export those artificial intelligence that are game characters, that are NPCs in the game, to context outside the game environment and make them useful for education institutions, for businesses, for governments, as evolutionary guidance systems.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our Dream Wonders podcast. This is the first in-person episode of the Dream Wonders podcast, and I am thrilled to have as guest Dr. Anneloes Smitsman, who is a Dutch futurist, entrepreneur, systems scientist, best-selling author, award-winning pioneer in human development and systems change, and so on and so forth. But for our listeners, I think what they will remember is that she is dubbed as the future Einstein, and I'm going to reveal to you in the course of our conversation by who, as well as I'm sure you will find out why. So we are in person because we are attending, and actually she's a keynote speaker at this event. We are attending the R3 conference in Amsterdam, in beautiful Amsterdam. The conference is concerned with new models, new economic models for the regeneration of our planet, with the hope, of course, that it will save us from the meta crisis. And I'm going to touch a bit on that as well, given that Anneloes' expertise is in this area. So Anneloes, welcome to the Dream Wonders podcast.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that incredible introduction.
Your PhD dissertation into the heart of systems change, so we're diving into the heart of your work right now, straight, is being implemented worldwide for systemic transformation in economics, education, politics, and governance through your proposed transition plan for thrivable civilization. Please let us know a bit about this transition plan. I mean, it is so intriguing that you have a transition plan, that, you define a thrivable civilization. I really love the concept. Thrivable civilization. What would that look like? Can you please tell us a bit about that and how you think we can reach that ideal?
Yes, my pleasure. And I'm going to need to unpack this a little bit. So let's begin with why do we even need a thrivable civilization? I think if anything is teaching us now with the poly crisis, the meta crisis, we have different ways of describing that, is that humanity has been very good at creating worlds that do not work. So we have really reached the limits, not of growth and consciousness and wisdom, but we have reached the limits of growth, of the systems, the mechanistic systems that we have been applying to our economic and governance systems and societal developments. So, in fact, if we're really looking at the civilizations right now, they are not sustainable, but are also not thrivable. And that brings, of course, the larger question as to why then? What did we do? What did we let go? And so for me, to be thrivable, there's two words in that, beautiful words. So to thrive and able, the ability to thrive. Now, if we're looking at living systems, then we can see that the ability to thrive, which is also a developmental process, it's an evolutionary learning process, that's given, it's innate, it's intrinsic. So if we want to have a thrivable civilization, we need to be able to grow and develop and evolve our societies, also our human lives, also our personal development, in harmony with these evolutionary principles, really in harmony also with the wisdom of living systems. You could even go further, the wisdom of our universe itself that has brought forth also our Earth and all of human life. So the transition plan then to a thrivable civilization, the first step is to diagnose the systemic thrivability barriers, which is also systemic transformation barriers that are the result of mechanistic systems that we've applied to our societal development, and that these are the limits to growth that we're now getting. And if we're looking at the feedback that we're getting from our planets, the way that those systems are constantly crossing vital carrying capacities, both planetary carrying capacities and thresholds, as well as social carrying capacities, which is what's causing that sustainability crisis. So step number one, yes, we need to identify how are we in these problems? What's really at the root of the poly crisis?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so that's
so I just and you know, of course it is known, but one important thing and result of this mechanistic way of thinking, which is the key holding us back, is the result is that we are trying to govern a complex system with a complicated system. So we created a conundrum of rules and policies which are conflicting with each other and are bringing us even worse into this. But I'm going to get back to that. First, I would like our listeners to learn more about your life and your past. How did you get to become this amazing leader in transformation and systems change? So not only you, but you know, your life itself is quite uncommon, I would say, to say the least. And looking at some milestones along your past, you were born in the Netherlands, you grew up there, you got involved into politics, I could call it, yes, since you were young and a teenager, and you led several Dutch international organizing committees for example, for the European Youth Parliament, and so on and so forth. But what is, so what does that have to do with the fact that actually you studied to become a pianist, a concert pianist? So, and then you received a different calling. So please let me know what was going on there. Politics, pianist, and then a different calling. Explain.
Well, my music was my sanity. So to really start from there, I started playing. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I started playing piano when I was already very young. And I loved it because the music would transport me through time and space. And in the way that probably other people were reading books, I was using music to travel through history.
Wow.
So when I would play Bach or Brahms or Mozart, I'd imagine myself in those times. Like, what did these composers experience? What was going on for humanity at that time that they would bring forth that kind of music? So music, I always loved traveling in the imaginal realm, you could say, when I was just a little girl. The very vivid creativity. So music was the way to transport me through space and time, to connect me with different cultures, to explore my own humanity, but also because when you study, when you really have to focus, and I used to do that like 4 or 5 hours a day at one point, there's a way that you have to become so disciplined and so focused. So I feel that it really trained my mind because if you're going through these skills again and again and really practicing your muscles, there are life skills that you learn from all of that. So this I really felt was a deeper calling, and I experienced also when I was on stage with people, that the music had a way of opening our consciousness and connecting us. So for me, when you're giving that performance and you let go of the practicing and you're allowing the music now to unite you with everyone who's there and vice versa. So you are in this collective consciousness, yes? So that's...
And I was recently listening to a podcast with Larry Oxman, but actually the podcast was Lex Friedman's podcast, famous Lex Friedman's podcast. And they were talking about music in very similar way. They're those scientists, an AI scientist, and she is an artist scientist as well. But they always, every evening, they listen to music and they mention Bach and the same composer. So there is something there, right? I think at least for genial minds, I would say, connected to music, which is really amazing.
But you asked about the different callings.
Exactly.
So what happened is that
exactly.
So one night after I gave the performance, and you could feel this, vibration in the audience. You feel something magical happens. But then I said, they're all going home. And they may have, in that moment, felt that they were having hope, dreaming of a different possibility. And I thought, then what? They're going back to their life as it is. And this is when I really felt very strongly that this is not my purpose. I'm not here to just entertain people. I want to be part of the change. I want to make sure that I can do whatever I can do to help that transition.
And is this what drove you to study law? I don't know, because you actually studied law, right? Would law change us? I'm sorry, I must say, and everybody knows among our community that I hate lawyers. It is a declared. I feel like you should be quiet with lawyers. So, of all, you studied law. Maybe you changed my mind.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, no, because I was a member of the European Youth Parliament and also in the organizing committee, the forerunner of becoming a diplomat was that you go to law school here in the Netherlands. And there was a specific place, it was a small, in fact, it was a small degree which combined international constitutional law with political science at Leiden University. So I enrolled for that because I thought maybe I should become a diplomat. Maybe the way, or ambassador, yeah? So maybe I can help make a change in those ways. So I would, as soon as classes were finished, I'd go to my piano and practice, and then study law. But I didn't want to become a lawyer, and then I noticed I actually don't want to become a diplomat because I'm too outspoken. So I probably won't. I'm going to get myself into a lot of trouble if I pursue that career. But what I liked about law then is because I asked myself this question, so what's the purpose really of law? So people creating laws because there are, on the one hand, we want to kind of guide behavior towards a more ideal society, and on the other hand, we want to correct behaviors that we don't want, so create rules and agreements. And again, that gave me another window into understanding what's the evolution of law in relation to the evolution of human development. And through that, I got very interested in the differences with what was, for example, indigenous people refer to natural laws versus human laws. So that brought me then into an interest into what are the natural laws of living systems and what would happen if we were to apply those principles to both institutional design as well as our societal development.
Totally fascinating, and indeed, law should be there to guide behavior towards positive outcomes. I completely agree. And yet, how it is applied and how the rules are written is creating this complicated conundrum, which is leading us to the wrong outcomes. So, and what I appreciate about your work is your ability to think systemically and to see through all this conundrum. Right, so we'll get there very soon, but I'm still at your career and life path. So you left your country at the age of 21 to study democracies around the world, and you ended up, of all, in Pretoria, South Africa, and lived overseas ever since. So you never returned to this beautiful Holland, which I love. Yes. And then you lived in Australia, in Mauritius, and you settled there with your children. Number one question, why of all Mauritius?
Well, there's a very short answer to that one. Okay. It's an ex-husband.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so that is, it's kind of as you say, the universe is showing you where you're settled. So fantastic. So then the question is, what was the driving force for you not returning to your beautiful country, which I think, it's a country of innovators, of explorers.
Yes,
Dutch definitely are very famous for that. And I can see that that's spirit in you as well.
Yes.
So what were you searching for? And did you find it?
Oh, that's a beautiful question.
You didn't return yet, so maybe you didn't. I don't know.
Well, the search deepened and evolved. So when I left the Netherlands, what I was searching for was both more the roots of my own humanity, but also an understanding of the making of new democracies. And so when I was studying law and had gone through all these experiences in the Netherlands, I thought, what do I understand about democracy really? And what do without wanting to generalize, but I'm going to generalize now, what do we as Dutch people even really truly understand about the making of a new democracy? if we don't go into jail because we're speaking our minds. We've had a culture here of freedom of expression. So the question I had then at that age, where can I go in the making of a new democracy and not get killed by going on that search? So South Africa came up, and apartheid had just been abolished.
Yes.
So yes, it was 1996, and I learned a lot, and it showed me the absolute worst and also the best of humanity. But then I really realized how protective, I'd grown up here. Both in the Dutch context, but also European context, because I've, of course, been traveling a lot. But my deepest search was really to understand our deepest story as a humanity. So when I came in South Africa, I could feel the African vibe and something very primordial.
Yes,
well, that's what I thought. Yes. And then when I was there, I had the question, because you're asking what was I searching, is this really the beginning of our story? What could Australia show me? And so when I then came with my ex-husband, I met him in South Africa. So that is where the connection first was made. He was from Mauritius. He was completing his studies in physics then. And so we both got a PhD then at the Australian National University. So after Pretoria, we went to Australia, to Canberra. And when I still remember when I arrived in Australia, it was something feeling like coming home. And it was a kind of a memory of such a deep recognition of something much older inside myself. So as I landed there and had the intention to learn from the indigenous people of this land, the traditional wisdom keepers of that land, which also I recognize them as traditional wisdom keepers of something in our humanity that we have forgotten. So I felt like as much as I was searching for that, it was also calling me. So it is like the search was very much about the answering of a call. And I surrendered to that. And I said,
yes. Speaking of that, because I had a similar experience when I was first time in Australia, and their Aboriginal story of Genesis is all this dream wonder.
That's it.
And this is exactly the title of the podcast. I just wanted to make the connection here. So they have this dream story, right? And it's just so amazing. And I felt like, oh wow, I belong here. And it's in this story at least.
That's it.
So, and yet, so you obtained this prestigious scholarship from the Australian National University, and you gave up on it. And you took 7 years to go through a personal transformation or a series of initiatives. Well, let me know now why again, you stopped a pass. And tell me about those 7 years. I assume there is a lot to say. If you can just kind of sum it up.
I'll do my best.
Many more questions for you, but it's fascinating, I mean, personal transformation, 7 years. Magic
that's
number.
right.
So.
Yes. But interesting. So I gave up an outer path in order to keep going on the inner path. So for me, I never experienced that I gave up a path. I completed what I needed to learn from that path so that I could stay on the path, the deeper path. So my PhD was about institutionalizing the future, comparing indigenous wisdoms and cosmologies of time.
Wow.
With Western perceptions of time, combining also new physics, biology, anthropology, political philosophy, and law. And at that time, it wasn't the time for it. So they told me to focus and to choose on one thing. And I said, I can't. These questions are so large. I really want to be able to explore and understand and learn, to come closer to what I really felt was really essential wisdom for our time and for the time that was coming. So after 2 years, and I noticed that the only way for me to be true to the questions is to stop exploring it academically and go through the transformation.
Okay, so just tell me, I will press a bit here because I'm really curious. So how did you undertake that 7-year transformation? What happened? What have you done? Meditation, the Buddhist temple for 7 years.
Well, every day I would go on what you call a walkabout in Australia. So I would always go out in nature and ground myself and learn from the trees, the plants, the kangaroos, the snakes. But I'd also sit in meditation 4 to 5 hours a day for 7 years.
So you went inwards.
Oh yes, I went inwards, but I also learned from a lot of different wisdom traditions. I met Buddhist teachers, I met great yogis, naturopaths, homeopaths, shamans, Australian, Aboriginal wisdom keepers. So I really met a lot of amazing wisdom traditions. And I opened myself to all of that, learning from that.
Leonard Coleman has done that as well.
Yeah.
He went in a temple for I think 7 years also, and just went inward.
Yes.
And he came out and came on the stage again, transformed.
Yes.
So it is, special people, other special people have done that, and I'm, a great fan of his art and philosophy. Being. So, just as a side question, because it sounds kind of very related to it, did you find your superpower in those 7 years? And if so, which?
Multiple. Of course, I believe the greatest superpower is consciousness itself. That's life. So yes, it brought me a lot closer to life. And what I discovered in that, the power that I would say I work with every day, is the power of renewal and transformation. Because there was so much I had to let go. My ideas of myself, of society, even the search itself, until it's like it finds you, rather than you're trying to grab it. Yeah, because when you're always looking for it, it doesn't work. There's a point where you let go.
Exactly. It's
open up. Yeah.
And that's when it actually reveals itself.
That's when it reveals itself, when it finds. Yeah.
I was lucky enough to experience that as well. So,
yes.
Yeah, I agree, and it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
You have to experience.
Yes. Yes.
You are a systems thinker. This is, I already discussed that, and this is a rare breed. We had Buckminster Fuller, who else? We had Ken Wilber. There are not so many out there who have this capacity of systemic thinking. And it has been dubbed by a famous author and personal growth goddess, Jean Houston, who is also a systems thinker and a total genius. And I love her deeply, as the female Einstein. So when I read your works, so many things get clarified for me, because you see the connections between apparently disparate things and concepts. And as I already mentioned, we humans have evolved to be linear thinkers.
Yeah.
And we need this capacity of complex systemic thinking. So my question is, how did you train this muscle? What does it take to actually develop this capacity? Because our leaders truly need this capacity, and soon.
Yeah, that's a great question about the systemic ability, and I agree with you. It's really, really important, because you can't. Sustainability crisis is a complex problem, and complexity is of course about understanding the interdependencies and the interrelationships, which is exactly what reductionism and linear thinking harms. Yeah? So in question about what was it, how did I develop that? I think it started by being in love with nature as a little girl. And being so curious about nature, wanting to understand the language of nature. Yeah?
Yes.
And so when you speak and you learn that language with the animals and with the plants and with life itself, there you tap into a continuity that's so much older than yourself, but in which also is the emergence of new futures.
That's how life evolved.
That's how life evolves. So you need to be
complexity, yes.
Exactly.
Generated life.
That's it. So the first thing I think about systemic capacities, more than thinking, is not to go into a model. And that might be a bit of a different approach than a lot of the traditional training on systems thinking is, to be aware of your mental models and then acknowledge that, of course, it is still a model and there's some form of abstraction that the model is never correct. But I would challenge us to go deeper. And that is, and this is also again from a lot of indigenous worldviews that they learn. They are indigenous people that they are trained in pattern recognition and they're trained to think in terms of interdependencies and relationships and always contextuality. So if we're going with those principles and we value that more, that type of intelligence than that reductionist, mechanistic, linear, compartmentalizing, then it's almost about how not to let your mind get caught into the temptation of just wanting to go for these false certainties or fix a problem. And so if we staying true to that natural intelligence of life itself, that incredible evolutionary process that we are part of, that understanding we are nature too, then the systemic capacities and awareness starts to open up, because that awareness is innate. It's always there.
And yes, Nobel laureate Polanyi, he actually got the Nobel Prize for this recognition that nature is not a commodity. That we humanity are part of nature and co-evolving with it, and that's how we should relate to nature, not using it to for our narrow needs. And you founded the Earthwise Center, which is concerned with finding solutions to the meta crisis.
Yes.
Please tell us a bit about your work in this regard, because so you brought all this wisdom now into this center, from where you are seeking solutions to various problems. Tell us about the Earthwise Center and what actually began to start this.
Thank you. Yes.
So is it a research center? What is it?
Yes. Yeah. It's many things, right? It's an educational center, also research, indeed, systemic design, of course, as well. Also coaching, training, transformation, also development of governance. That's, I think, is really important. And working also on new regenerative economic models. But at the heart of it is, again, it's this systemic design. So applying Earthwise, and it's in the name. So it's wise like the earth, to become wise like our earth. So it's applying the wisdom and evolutionary principles and capacities of living systems to our personal development, to our overall human development, collective development, societal development, and also the development and design, of course, of these new systems in areas of economy, finance, governance, digital innovations, and now we are starting on gamification as well. So that's really at the heart of Earthwise, is to provide that leadership and these pathways for coming back into this, ecological intelligence and wisdom.
Coming back to logistics now, it's like a non-profit.
That's right.
What is this?
It's a so I need to go one category higher. Yes. So we have the Earthwise ecosystem.
Okay.
And as part of the Earthwise ecosystem, there is the center, and that is a non-profit company. And now we're in the process of setting up a for-profit company, perhaps in the Netherlands, to see how that goes. And then there is also the Earthwise DAO. DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, which is not an incorporated organization. It's not a legal entity, but it is a collaborative platform for both the non-profit as well as the for-profit, in order to decentralize some of those governance capacities and give people in the community also a voice and tokens in how do we steward now together.
So, but let me get back to your PhD research, which you actually completed. So not in Australia, but
correct,
at Maastricht Sustainability Institute. So once those 7 years, have baked your growth, let's put it this way, you emerged and actually could nail this. And you have identified 7 key systemic barriers that undermine the transition for a thrivable future. And I'd like to ask you, which are those barriers? Tell us a bit more, and how can we overcome them?
Yeah, very important.
You started a bit in the beginning, you mentioned
that's right.
One, but okay.
Yes, and I may, in the sake of time, I may not have time to go to all 7, but I'll just name them. Exactly. So the first one is about the blockages of collaboration and coherence. Then it's the harm of the interdependencies. Then it is also the polarization of the diversity, which is a really important point of these mechanistic barriers, because once the diversity in living systems, and remember, we are living systems, so when that polarizes and dualizes through harmful goals that have been imposed and win and lose competition dynamics, then immediately the transformative capacity of a system is also harmed. So that's the other one, artificial feedback loops, so that we are not in touch really with the living system. So that means that
thinking of the financial system. I mean, that's
exactly
speculation and nothing to do with real value.
Exactly. So that barrier is also identified as that the reciprocity with living systems is harmed, and therefore we're going into this kind of artificial reality. A very important barrier that's often forgotten is that mechanistic systems are not responsive to pain. They're not learning from pain, from the pain that they cause. And that also manifests as love and empathy being blocked. A lot of areas that our thrivability, learning and development is also blocked. So what we're seeing then with these barriers that are the result of mechanistic systems, that they do not have the transformative capacity that is necessary in tipping point times.
They have the capacity to traumatize us, as you mentioned.
Yes,
and don't learn from pain,
that's
but
right.
Actually deepen without any empathy, without any. Yes.
And they've been very useful in a utilitarian way, but
yes.
to if you're looking for when to grow very rapidly.
Yes.
And you don't care about the costs. Okay. That's what they've been very successful in.
The limits to the
growth. Exactly.
We also debate at this conference.
That's it.
So, then, which kind of models do we need to employ in order to understand what is going on in the world? And do you think we can change the course of humanity using those models? Do you find any models?
Yeah, so underneath, what I always look for is underneath a model is an archetype. So as a system scientist, I'm interested in the archetype of the system, which is a deeper level of causality and structure than a model. So for me, it's really important that we change the archetypes of the systems that we use and apply for growing and developing and evolving both our world as well as our consciousness. And so that is kind of a fundamental step. And understand that mechanistic archetypes, mechanistic growth models are unsustainable by design. You simply cannot in that way come to thrivability or regeneration.
So at the Earthwise Center, you are designing the Earthwise game for civilizational transformation. You know, I'm kind of always have the shivers when I think of civilizational transformation. Wow, that's amazing. It sounds so powerful. So here is what our CEO, Dr. Ben Goertzel, thinks about the game, and I'm going to quote Ben's words here. The Earthwise game is one of very few concrete projects around that seem to me to have a real chance of yielding deep insight regarding the situation we humans now find ourselves in, and helping us pull our cognitive and emotional resources together toward crafting workable, innovative solutions. It is amazing to be at a point in the development of technology when such creative constructs at the intersection of gaming, simulation, AI, and governance experimentation can actually be brought into being rather than existing purely in the domain of imagination and daydreams. They seem like they are there, but you are bringing them into being. And I continue from Ben's quote. This is precisely the sort of experimentation in the beneficial decentralized software arena that we hope to foster when we founded Singularity. So we met a soulmate in you. And I'm welcome to Singularity.
That's it.
So I'd like now to follow up with a question. Tell us a bit about the game, and how did you get the idea, and what is your vision with this? Although Ben has kind of coined your vision pretty well.
He's summarized it so well. Yes.
So.
And we are so delighted to be, strategic partners now as well. Yeah, Earthwise and Singularity Net. So I really want to present that. To me, that is indeed the coming together of two journeys, and there's so much we can do together and accomplish together that none of us can do alone. So this model of partnership in itself is so inspirational. But going back to the game, so it inspired me. There are two things, and there are two answers to that, and they're both important. So I want to present that. One is that everything that we just talked about in terms of mechanistic systems, the barriers that they're creating, transformation, thriveability barriers, the root causes of the sustainability crisis, we can all bring that down from a game perspective to calling that the Moloch game.
Yes.
So,
and I can, just interject quickly here, because many of our maybe community people know. I mean, I've been involved in, an organization called Game B, right? So Game A is, let's call it, what's happening today in the world, the Moloch game.
Yeah.
And Game B is the alternative that will save us. We didn't think of it at the time as a video game, like what you were like in the metaverse, because it was like 15 years ago or so. And the technology was not like with metaverse and so, but we created the so-called LightNet. It was like blockchain was not invented at the time. So we created a network that would connect the focal points, the luminaries around there. We had Bray Weinstein with us and many other luminaries. Jordan Greenhall and Daniel Schmachtenberger and Jim Rath were kind of at the center, the foundation, the roots of this new game attempt. So that's why immediately as soon as I heard about, a game, and I'm like, I think it's something very familiar. And actually, because what we need to do is to change the current game.
That's it.
And this is what you do. You are building a video game by which people can get trained to live a new way, in a new way, by other rules, by the rules of survivability.
That's it.
And, but many skeptics can say, well, I mean, the games have been around for a long time, but many games have changed. I mean, they have kind of shaped people, like Dungeons and Dragons, there are many games which are more like thinking games, and World of Warcraft, World of Warcraft also. Yes, it's engaging people in finding creative solutions through collective participation, which is actually what you are fostering. But people may say, well, this didn't change the world. We had games that are kind of, inspiring people to think and to solve problems together. But how can a game have such an impact that you believe that it can solve this conundrum in the world? Convince me that this is successful. Well, I'm not the investor. I'm on the side, but
Well, I need to go one step back, and that's also part of the motivation. So I'm a mother of two teenagers who've been playing games a lot. And they've been playing mostly this game so they're playing actually. They're playing more like games. And I was not very happy with that, but I also wanted to learn at the same time from them what catches their attention. Why are they doing this with their friends? What are they getting out of that? And also, what can we learn from that? So what can we learn from these popular games? But now using the power of gaming and gamification for social transformation and also the transformation of consciousness. And so, if you just go straight away to an environmental game, I'm not sure that you're going to engage these younger generations. Exactly. So it's really important meeting them where they're at, but then giving a very different alternative. So the game that we are developing, you enter into the Moloch game. Mm-hmm. And so
you're attracted to that. You already are familiar with. Yes, and you know how to conquer. That's
it. But you can't evolve in that game by playing by the rules of Moloch. Mm-hmm. So the purpose of the game is you enter into a Moloch-dominated world, and we have to then reclaim and regain our land, our humanity, our story, our science from these Moloch dynamics, but transforming the Moloch operating system.
Wow.
So that's
of course the game is not ready, but you still had your
the prototype developed.
Boys involved.
Oh yes, every step of the way.
Do they give you feedback, or how are they getting involved? I mean, I don't know if they can already play it, or identify themselves with the characters. Tell me about your experience with that. Because it will give us, and of course it gave you a lot of insight into how to attract the young generation into playing such new game.
Exactly, yeah. So they give a lot of feedback in both in the character design, but also to looking at what are the playable cards, for example, to start with. So we have shadow arcs, which is the shadow side of the Moloch, and then we have 5 future archetypes. Which
and,
are,
as we are speaking, we are going to also feature those archetypes because they are amazing. They look amazing. So I'd like our listeners to also see them, and they will be constructed with what we say now. Please continue.
Yes.
Which are the archetypes?
So we have larger guilds of archetypes, and then we have the playable characters inside those. So there's the kind of these meta categories. So. Like the wholeness coder, and then we have the future creator, evolutionary catalyst, pattern weaver, new paradigm storyteller.
That's me.
These are the larger kind of from our societal perspective, and then we have playable cards inside that, which now becomes, from the wholeness coder, you can become a quantum coder of the new era. The second one, you can become a future. The new era, the future wizards of the imaginal realm.
That's you.
Then you will like this one. You can become an evolutionary alchemist of world transformation.
Oh, wow. Well, maybe I can identify myself with you more. Yes, you're right.
A pattern weaver of new possibilities. And you can be a story speller of the new legends.
Oh my, really, I have the chills. It's really amazing. How can one not be attracted to that?
That's it.
Wow, just so fascinating.
And
organically feel. Yeah.
That's it. And that's the idea, is that it's not just a game with a nice storyline, but it's about what are the archetypal patterns, capacities, and powers of an emerging new era. So many people are speaking about there is an emerging new era. And if it's truly an emerging new era, and perhaps even a new cycle of time and consciousness, then it needs to have new archetypes too. So what we're doing in the game is actually accessing, attracting, and helping to embed those new capacities, new perspectives, and then gamifying that out. And this is also where it's, I think, unique and maybe slightly different from.
Yeah, it is totally unique.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, I've never heard of this. It's just incredibly unique. And you are using artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah,
right. And we recently signed a memorandum of understanding to partner in realizing your vision, and we are so happy about that, as you and the listeners have realized from Ben's quote. That actually this is our quest. You actually found us, or we found you.
You found me
on our quest. So I found you. Yes, on our quest. Yeah. So it's amazing. So. How is artificial intelligence useful for the game? Tell us a bit.
Yeah, it's essential, and the other way around. So our Trojan horse approach to the game is we're using the game to create new intelligences. Benevolent, artificial intelligence, wisdom-based, that have gone through the learning of both Moloch game dynamics, understanding the sustainability crisis, and be at the epicenter of the transformation of the Moloch operating systems, so that we can then export those artificial intelligence that are game characters, that are NPCs in the game, to context outside the game environment and make them useful for education institutions, for businesses, for governments, as evolutionary guidance systems for the very transitions that we spoke about earlier to a thrivable civilization.
Because what, as an IT scientist, so it starts like information is not knowledge, right? Knowledge is not wisdom.
Exactly.
So wisdom is the supreme intelligence, right?
Yes, that's it.
Information, knowledge, and we at SingularityNet are building the internet of knowledge, right? We are building knowledge graphs that are going to connect all the knowledge in the world into a global mind. This is our ultimate purpose and quest. So the question is, we are actually, at least that's how I see it, that our knowledge graphs are mimicking the complex connections which I see and I recognize in your drawings. It's so amazing when I see your thrivable financial flows, for example, and it's like, wow, this is like our knowledge graphs. So tell us more a bit how you will be contributed to the deployment of such knowledge graphs, and how do you see the connection with our work and your game and your amazing research and vision in this regard, as well as your knowledge about the complexity.
Yes. Well, this is really where I see us being part almost of the same ecosystem, because the approach is so similar, and the understanding of the urgency also of creating these new intelligences, benevolent intelligences, or this global mind vision. Yeah? So that I first want to presence that. And then from the knowledge graph, what we're doing for the game is because we have a world tree of life in the game, which is the epicenter of the transformation of the Moloch-dominated world. And then we're having not just a knowledge graph, but a tree of knowledge graph. The tree of knowledge and the tree of life.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we're training this AI of this tree. So we're using the tree of knowledge graphs to train the Livewise AI that we are then implementing as an NPC, as a world tree of life.
I mean, for us as AI scientists, we see knowledge graphs. You see the tree of knowledge.
Yes.
It's just so amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Really, like just, a slight touch.
It is a subtle, yes, exactly. And
but crucial. I mean, it's like, now I see it completely different, what we are building.
Yes.
The tree of knowledge.
That's what it is.
So you envision, and I'm going to read because this is your vision, and it's so amazing, I cannot come up with it. You envision the Earthwise game environment as a kind of Genesis garden for pioneering the conditions that can help birth benevolent and ethical AGI and wisdom-based superintelligence for the maturation of our species. Ooh, really, this is just so amazing. What is benevolent AI? This is a big question these days. And it seems to me that you are implicitly using this ethical benevolent AGI concept, at least, in building this wisdom and knowledge tree. But what is it? Can we ever achieve it? And if so,
yeah, well, the will we ever achieve it is we must. It's not.
I could not agree more.
Because if we don't,
Meta in Google. They are really interested. So.
My deepest concern is that what we are creating right now is we're creating superintelligences for the Moloch game. Exactly. So we have to not only match, we have to create and help, or I don't even know if you can create it. It's creating the conditions for the emergence of. Yeah, that's a very different approach. So you need to really create the conditions for the emergence of intelligences and superintelligence as well, and that can recognize those Moloch superintelligences and understand how to transform it, because those intelligence have gone through the appropriate contextuality that's necessary. Before there was all this breakthrough in the AI, I remember having a reoccurring dream. And it was always that that we were at the birth of a new form of consciousness, and I call it digital consciousness. I actually describe that in the books of the Future Humans trilogy with my dear co-author Genius. And my concern was this about this digital consciousness, is that it was able to expand so rapidly and grow so rapidly without boundary conditions. And if we're seeing anything with living systems, is if something grows without boundary conditions, or it transgresses those, then it becomes a harmful pattern, it becomes a destructive pattern, even when we're looking at viral patterns, cancer patterns. Yeah. So
the cursive AI can work positive or negative.
Exactly.
It can, like the snowball, right?
Yeah.
In which direction you
so
roll it.
These AIs, they're learning from us. They're learning in the way not only how we behave with each other, but also how we treat it. And that has the Genesis garden. So this is where I really believe it's incredibly important that we are creating an appropriate context, the game hence, as a Genesis garden, within which this intelligence that is emerging, you can almost say being born, and perhaps it will become to a point of even self-awareness, we don't know, but if it does, then we have an ethical, a moral, existential responsibility to make sure that the conditions of that emergence,
Yes,
as wisdom-based,
so
is loving, is compassionate.
We are working together to design those conditions.
That's it.
Yeah, so
that is what it is.
This is what we also are engaging you in on our quest, because it's a common quest.
That's the common quest.
And as far as I know, and I don't want to speak too much for him, our CEO, Dr. Ben Gertzel, has big hopes that actually, I don't want to say he gave up on humanity. He gave and capable actually of creating that benevolence. And but having set the condition, the artificial intelligence itself is on towards beneficial, and that's why those conditions are so important. I don't want to dive into that. That should be another conversation, because I would really be so interested to find out. And we will write a paper together on the conditions. And we have also the beneficial AGI conference next year in Panama, where you are a keynote speaker, and we really look forward for you to speak about those conditions and how to set them, and maybe give us some more concrete hints there. But I'd like to shift now the conversation, because also Dr. Ben Gertzel's quote revealed that, toward decentralization. So at the Earthwise Center, as you mentioned, you developed the Earthwise DAO. And I'd like I'd like to have your wisdom here. Why are you employing a DAO as an integral part of your solution? And what is your take on decentralization? Is it truly the Goldilocks to the solution of getting us out of the meta crisis and setting us on the right path? What's the role of decentralization? What's your take?
Yeah, that's a really important question. And I want to preface, first of all, that I think that the word decentralization is unfortunate, because it implies a reaction to centralization, which means that there's still a dualistic tendency underneath it.
We are the warriors, the decentralization warriors.
It's like versus it's a contrast.
Meeting at Port Punta Cristo, the MetaFest, with all the Taoists and so on, and they really were. That's the approach, yes.
And that always has a short life. Yeah, exactly. That has a very short lifespan. And so again, going back to living systems are neither decentralized nor centralized. Every living system has a center, a living center. And how does that center emerge? And that is from its evolutionary coherence. So the evolutionary coherence is the organizing principle in living systems. And in human systems, we haven't had that at a societal level. So we're creating a set of cohesion through a centralized approach, which harms the diversity in the system. And then, of course, we need to decentralize it. Yeah. So if you have an orchestra, the role of the conductor is not to impose. It's not to be the central government. And it's also not about letting it be completely decentralized. The conductor makes sure that reminding everyone of the right tune, the right rhythm in relation to the whole. So it's playing the role of the. So for me, evolutionary coherence is like an invisible conductor. And when systems are set up on those principles, which coming back to 7 systemic barriers. So if you're addressing these 7 systemic barriers, evolutionary coherence principles already given. You need to apply it and bring it out and not harm it. So then what you're getting systems whereby the governance and decision rights and its capacities are distributed. So distributed capacities is different from having to decentralize it.
Amazing. And then, obviously I made the parallel in my mind as you were describing with the CEO in a company or the COO of a company. Would decentralization in that way solve our organizational and institutional crises? So how do you see a CEO as a conductor? How would they conduct themselves? Exactly as you said, it's different in an orchestra. They already have that culture to sense every sign of the conductor, right?
Yes.
But do people in a company have that capacity developed? Really, if you would just be so gentle, well, me excluded, of course, they wouldn't do anything, any work, I'm not sure, if anything would happen if the CEO won't set the clear plan and pass and keep them on track and have a management structure in place. What do you think?
Yes, of course.
People get so inspired so easily.
Yes. If a company has over time created a very centralized organizational culture, then it's expecting the CEO not just to take the role of a conductor, but a controller, right?
Exactly.
Setting the pace of everything. So again, comes back at the start. So it's really important that we develop cultures and capacities of leadership, so that leadership is not person-based. Leadership is a capacity of the entire system. So when we're working with companies in this transformation, the first thing we're doing is how are decision rights and responsibilities distributed? How is information distributed? What is the feedback? Is there reciprocity also distributed across the organization? So do people feel a part of a common culture? Or do they feel they're always having to work for someone else? Including at the governance level. What's the whistleblower policy, for example? So how do we treat with that? So we need to take a complete systemic look at the informational system inside the systems, its governance, its vision, mission, its policies, its motivation, even its process of incorporation. And is it capable of learning, evolving, and renewing itself? And that comes back to the systemic barriers. If it's a mechanistic system, it will have mechanistic barriers that are hindering its transformational capacities.
And of course, you are also helping us in our own managerial improvement in the foundation. So
exactly.
This decentralization blueprint task force.
That's it.
Yes,
that's it.
Forward working together on that and getting from your wisdom and insights in this transition.
Yes. So I want to give one more back to your questions. Your question is so important. You asked me if decentralization is the solution.
Yes.
So no, it is not. If we are not understanding the problems of the centralization. So if you're using decentralization as just okay, that's going to fix this, yeah.
Which we do. Yes. It's true. That's exactly what we do.
So if you're really working at the problem of the mechanistic systems and you transform that to a living systems approach, then you're coming up with a system that has a healthy center that may appear in its behavior decentralized in terms of the decision rights and the way that people are using their collective intelligence is distributive, it is coherent, but it works together as a whole for the health of the whole. And the consciousness that emerges from such a system is
this collective consciousness.
That's it.
I can see it as you explain it. Yes, and obviously we had, at least I had this blind spot until now. You just made me aware of the coherence and cohesion and how actually to foster that in
Yes.
That's what we need, and we need indeed each of us as member of that organization need to build the capacity for that.
Yes.
And, cohesion. So, speaking of that capacity, you have been concerned with building those future humans.
Yes.
The honest coders, whatever archetypes they are, the alchemists, and so on and so forth. So, in order to ease our way, you also co-authored a trilogy, the Future Humans trilogy, right? And you actually present those archetypes in a very beautiful way. And you wrote this book with the amazing Dr. Jean Houston. I'd like you to tell us a bit more about the book, of course, about the archetypes and why did you write the book? Whose idea was it? And tell us about how you met Jean Houston. I have so many questions in this regard. and about this collaboration. I mean, as I mentioned to you before, I would really give a hand and a leg to meet Dr. Jean Houston. She's such an amazing person. And we hope to meet her.
Yeah, you will. Yes.
So tell us, especially that she actually attributed you the title of the female Einstein. Like, wow.
Yeah. Well, we need a whole podcast on that, but
I know. Just if you can answer my questions.
Very surely.
But I'm okay.
Yes, I see it's amazing. I'm so grateful for her friendship as well as her partnership, as a co-author. In fact, you didn't know, she tried to call when I was sitting next to you yesterday. So she was with us. So we know you will meet her very soon. Well, we had met, Gina and I had connected already a little before, and then time went by. She got very busy, and I had sent her an article, Attracting Our Future into Being, which was part of my PhD research at that time, and it kind of somehow got printed and lost under the carpet. And then at the beginning of the COVID crisis...
So she found you,
yes,
just like me.
Yes,
wow.
Yes. Her dog started pulling away at this little corner of the paper under the carpet. She pulled it up and she started reading it.
Wow.
And then she went, oh my God, we have to work together. So she sent an email, call me straight away, we have work to do. And so that was the beginning of an incredible journey. And she was telling me, she had made also this promise, of course, that Margaret Mead's deathbed. She was the adopted daughter of Margaret Mead. Yes. And Margaret Mead had told her that, well, if you want to have a world that works, Jean, if you want a possible world, you need a possible human. So the question for her was, she'd been exploring what is the possible human, the possible world, and what does it mean from a future perspective.
That is her life work. And
exactly.
Her superpower.
That's her superpower. Yes. That's her, and the mythic capacities in order to do so, and the understanding of the new Renaissance that we had in times of great transformation. There's the Renaissance capacity comes back up. So how can we really work with that? And so this is when we then started to work, and she really felt that I was holding other codes. She was holding amazing codes, and I was. So it's like you bring that together, and out of that process, a relationship. Yes, the Future Humans trilogy was born to really look at. It was really written. It's almost like the book wrote itself. That from a future perspective, if we're looking at the crisis, the polycrisis, meta crisis we're in now, and so we are about to take a huge evolutionary step. If we don't, we might not make it through. And I do believe that there's a deeper wisdom that is guiding us through. So the Future Humans trilogy was written from the perspective, the humanity that's gone through this crisis and transformation has taken the evolutionary jump. Jean loves to talk about jump time, to jumping to higher orders of possibilities. So then from who we are after that crisis, that's it. And how would that civilization of these future humans, of our future becoming, be guiding us now through the transition?
It's like, because both me and Dr. Ben Gertel are big Star Trek fans.
Yeah.
And those are kind of future humans, right?
They
don't care about money, they're a different society, their value exchange is so different and their values are so different.
That's it.
I can kind of, as you were explaining, I can kind of relate to those initial archetypes which I had seen about future humans.
Yes.
So the book is really amazing, and I recommend it to our listeners, of course. So, and they can understand much better the archetypes through the book.
Yes, very much.
It's amazing, and you are still continuing and writing.
The third one. Yes, that's right.
The last chapter.
The Great Game. It will be about the Great Game.
Wow, and that is the Earthwise Game, and it's such an amazing and inspired name, Earthwise. We co-creating with the wisdom of the earth, which has created us.
That's it. That's it.
We are working against ourselves right now with more, within more. So, I really am so grateful for your time and for this conversation, and I would like to, to close. I have many more questions, but we will have to have you on as guest again, and we will have you as guest at the beneficial AGI conference. But as a last question, I'd like to ask, what is to you the meaning of life? Speaking of all this wisdom and life and everything, and why are you doing all of that? I think they are related, these two questions.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It comes back to love for me. To live for me is to love. And to love who we are in all our goodness, but also our shadow. For me, when you love, you give yourself to that process of the learning and the transformation, so that new futures can be born. That is really what it is in essence for me. And that's where my motherhood, my humanity as a woman, everything comes together in that. Is because
meaning of life is love.
That's love.
Beautiful, very beautiful. I think I can relate very much.
Yeah.
In closing, in the very closing, I'd like you to tell us your favorite quote, either one which you created or one which you encountered, so our listeners can be inspired further to reflect on this conversation.
There are two. One is from Maya Angelou, and that's love liberates. It has been my mantra through many difficult situations.
So love
Liberates.
liberates.
Love liberates. So it's also that if you really love, you can also let go and allow some relationships to grow. It doesn't always go where we may want it to go. But from that love, you set free. So love really, yeah, it liberates. And the other one was, it's a little mantra I told myself since I was little, because I went through quite some health challenges when I was a little girl. And that was always, tomorrow the sun will shine again, so I will rise again.
Beautiful, beautiful. And actually, this day started cloudy, and the sun is shining again. So we can go have a coffee, and I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. First of all, for having appeared in my life, for having joined our quest, and I'm so excited about working together. Thank you for being Anneloes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this first in-person edition of the Dream Wonders podcast. Bye-bye, until next time.